credit.
I said
He
the way he
has brought
runs
some
it like a Republican.
because Yonkers is so there's such a lack of participatory democracy. Let me put it that way. And in lieu of that, the Spano clan has taken over, and some of the things that they have done have been beneficial to the community. They brought in Lionsgate, which has basically recreated the Astoria and East and West Coast monopoly of Hollywood. Based on the rate that Lionsgate is growing, Yonkers will become the eastern version of Hollywood, which is a good thing because there'll be a lot of production. It'll raise the perception of what Yonkers is. The biggest dispute over Spano is affordable housing. Now he has put in a lot of high rises, but some of those high rises have been put in blighted areas of Yonkers that actually needed to be taken down, needed to be raised. So those things are good.
And he brought
But
MGM,
when it comes
MGM with the casino.
MGM with the casino, but the problem is on a lesser unseen level. Getty Square, which desperately needs to be cleaned up. You have people that live over on the waterfront that are steps away from Getty Square that are not crossing Warburton/Riverdale Avenue to go shopping because they are afraid. You've got a shop right. So you understand that there's a shop right which is right next door to the waterfront, which my daughter has banned me to go to. I mean, even though I go there, but I don't go there until late. I go there at 11 o'clock at night when I know that the parking lot's going to be empty and when I'm not going to be accosted by the panhandlers.
Ardina, now, I tell the story all the time. When you go down there, in some of these other places, you've got your parking app and you can just pay on the app. But when you go 200 yards up the hill from Getty Square, you better have your pocket full of quarters for the parking meters.
Oh, without a doubt. I've definitely experienced that firsthand.
It's a whole nother world.
Time out 1 second here, folks. I want to make a prediction.
Okay. Checking the news here.
We need to have a drum roll.
So
I'll make it
my prediction is that there is going to be a flip. This is a prediction. We won't know for a while. In County Legislative District 11, which is where I live, I think that John Hines is got a good chance of beating Terry Clements. I could be wrong about that. She's an incumbent. I believe a one-term, maybe two-term, one-term incumbent. I can't remember. John Hines is a Republican, popular. He's a police officer in Pelham. And he's also, now this is an interesting thing. It ties back to what we were talking about 15 minutes ago. He's a Republican, but he's also running on an independent line. And I think what that does is in a place like Pelham Manor has a fair number of Republicans. So there's that. But then in the village of Pelham, where there's a high registration of Democrats, having that independent line gives a Democrat license to vote for him. It says it's okay because I voted for him. I didn't vote for him on the Republican line. I voted for him on this community neighborhood line or whatever it's called.
That's a great point.
And I think that this guy has got the profile of what traditionally has been the profile of a county legislator, which is a very community-oriented person, not so much wired into national issues and some of the things that Marty was talking about earlier, not so wired into the presidential politics or the geopolitics. And, we've interviewed a bunch of these county legislators and other local politicians on our show. And Jim Maizano made an interesting point a few weeks ago. He said, his observation has been that more recently, people are coming on the county board of legislators and they have an agenda that is aligned to national and state level issues and less oriented toward the community, cleaning up the parks, cleaning up the county roads, addressing flooding and the kinds of local issues. So I think this guy, John Hines, has a chance at it, but we'll have to see as more of the districts unfold. That's my prediction for tonight. We'll have to see how that turns out.
Well, so far of the independent party, he's got 3 votes.
It's only 3 districts. There's 41 districts in
Yeah,
Pelham. It's,
no, no, I
it's early
understand. I'm
days.
just
It's
saying.
early days. Early
hard.
days.
I'm gonna say
On
traditionally-
another,
Okay.
it's just one national note. In Ohio, they're passing legalizing marijuana as well.
Ah,
Oh,
and
well,
traditionally,
it's not the end of the world.
traditionally the Independence Party in Westchester County, when Doc Cavallo was in charge, was dangerous because they could be the flip, whether it was Democrat or Republican. They could be the difference in a lot of those tight races, and they have been the difference. When they were in full strength before. So that's the dangerous. That's why when he has a fundraiser, you see all the Republicans and Democrats. They all come to his thing because they want his support because he could be that. Some of these races are close. He could be that deciding factor.
Sure.
Which may portend a trend, again, because we have issues now that, again, to the point that I made earlier, have divided the Democratic Party, and people just don't know how to position themselves as far as voting. So we may see more of that.
All right. Let's see what's
I think
going
it
on.
will. And I wouldn't be surprised if some of these county legislator races are a lot closer, and there's a possibility one or two might actually flip, or the Republicans might actually put a scare on them tonight because they're coming.
What about Vedat?
They're coming hard.
What about Vedat Gashi? I don't know if the numbers are out on Gashi yet, but
They are.
Gashi has he won? Is he?
No,
it's
his was
not.
close too. I see from news.
See,
There we go.
Gashi is a wild card. We had him on the show. He's a very, very interesting guy. Gashi is from Kosovo. Came here like a lot of Kosovars when he was a young kid. Ended up living in the tough part of the Bronx. Did very, very well for himself. Became an attorney. He's a Muslim, and he lives in Yorktown. But he has, I wouldn't say very, very conservative values, but he certainly does not fit the mold. And he has a good political career ahead of him, except for that little incident that he had with the residency issue,
Yeah.
which at one point that didn't bode well for his future. But if the race is close, then obviously it did not have much of an impact. People like him.
Right now, it's
I
not
can't
close.
see. I can't see the results. What does it look like now?
Right now, in that district, it's 10 out of 61 districts have reported, and it's Vedat Gashi 57%. Yeah.
Okay.
To 43%.
There you go.
What's that, AJ?
57% to 43%, and that there's a couple of those races where the Republican candidate could overturn it or come very close and make them earn that vote.
Now let's just
Well, we all
look
know
at-
too. We all know too that when you get to northern Westchester and Putnam County, it really does flip and become much more open to the Republicans.
Absolutely.
I
Absolutely.
mean,
So let's-
when you hit you go up the Taconic Parkway and you get off, maybe half an hour north, that's where you start to see the Trump signs all over the place.
But let's just look at this for a second. There's a contested. Let's start in District 1. All the legislators are up. District 1 is a contested race. District 2, not contested. District 3, not contested, if my mouse would work. District 4, Vedat Gashi, not contested. District 5, Ben Boykin, not contested. District 6, not contested. District 7, what's going on here?
Catherine Parker.
That's Catherine Parker. How
Catherine
is she
Parker.
doing?
She has a race, but with
She's up.
only one district reporting, she's way
Yeah.
ahead. But we haven't seen the results. But I don't think she's going to have a big problem in her district. District 8, not contested. District 9, contested. District 10, contested. District 11, contested. District 12, not contested. I think this David Iamura, I think he's a party guy from up county somewhere.
Yeah.
No,
What-
he's
what-
from Irving. David's from Irvington.
Thank you. Right. Well, to me, that's up county.
Okay.
Tyree Woodson Samuels, not contested. David Tabulio, that's Yonkers.
Yonkers
David Tabiolo, yeah.
Yonkers.
That's
Not,
Yonkers. That is Yonkers.
and Mount Vernon.
right, not contested. And then Ruth Walter, who we had on our show, she's got a race. And
Against
at
Nolan.
At the moment, yeah, Nolan was on as well, and he's right at the moment. It's 6 out of 75 districts, and Nolan is ahead, but it's too early to say. District 16, Shanae Williams, she has an opponent, and in District 17, there is a contested election. So I don't know. I lost count, but I think 4 or 5 of them are not contested. At least.
That's interesting that Christopher Johnson has 4% on the Working Family Party after he was removed. I didn't know his name was still on the ballot.
Yeah, he still has a few loyalists, not that many,
No,
but
absolutely he does. Yes, the James Nolan Ruth Walter race, Walter.
yes,
I
yes.
believe is going to be hard for Ruth to retake her seat. James
That's right.
Nolan, he has 2 things going for him. One, he has a lot of popularity fighting for gun control after the killing of his brother, and also he works for DPW. He picks up your garbage. He's on the streets. He sees you every day. Like, he's approachable. He's, they like him, and a lot of people complain that they didn't see Ruth around. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
it's hard for her to. I think it's going to be hard for her to make up the numbers to regain her seat.
But you know something, AJ, it's more than that. I mean, Ruth is a good politician. She did have that. Let's face it, she held that position at one time.
Right.
But from the time that she had that position and now, there is a sea change. Ruth is basically pro bail reform. She's basically she's involved in climate change, which is fantastic. But let me tell you something. I mean, when you're in a hardcore blue collar district such as the one that Nolan's in, you're not going to sit down and talk to people about climate change. You're not going to sit down and talk to people about bail reform when they want more cops, when their cars are getting broken into every other night. And this is where Nolan has the advantage.
He has supported.
Time out.
He has supported the police department and the unions. He has that. Go ahead.
Nolan was out on our show, a very personable guy. So we do have some viewers right now. Viewers, the chat is open and live. If you've got questions, you can put them into the chat, and we'll, try to address what you're thinking about. I'm curious what your experience was today. If you went to the polls, what did you see? Was it low voter turnout? Was it high voter turnout? What time of day was it? Let me know in the chat when you voted. Let's go back and see if there's any more of these village races coming through.
We've got to try and get Lou, because that will be interesting to see what happens between Sharon Torres and Tom Murphy for all intents and purposes.
While we're doing this.
Okay.
I don't want to get disconnected.
No,
Charlie, Charlie's going to do it.
I'll do it. I got it. All right, so here's what's going on in White Plains. The numbers are beginning to fill in a little bit more in the cities. Vote for 3, and there's 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, the 3
4,
Democrats are
5
going
people.
to sweep. They're going to sweep.
Yeah. 12 out of 45. So it looks like we're getting to about, I guess, 25%, 26% of the vote coming in and being reported in these cities. Let's see what Yonkers looks like.
By the way, Jeremiah Fry Pearson, who's running in White Plains, ran a few years ago in Newcastle. But I guess changed his address, fell into a different district this time around. He lost up county.
Okay, I'm looking on my screen. I'm waiting to see if anything pops up, but nothing yet.
Yeah, Deanna Robinson in that council race in Yonkers, she's walking away with it. If you've got the Democratic line over there, that's pretty much all you need.
Also,
But
Our friend Hector has 21 votes. Now there's only 5% in, but he's losing 76 to 24% to Tasha Diaz, which I guess on some level
Tasha's part of the machine. Tasha's part of the Spano machine, and so is Deanna Robinson. Deanna Robinson, when she was campaigning, never set foot down by the Yonkers waterfront, never listened to the concerns of the people that live in those high-rise buildings, and the beat goes on. So you're going to see very much the same.
AJ, does Hector Santiago have a political future? Is he just going to be a gadfly?
Good question. That depends on him. He had a little bit of steam behind him with the shake. What was it? The stop and shake
Shake,
thing.
stop and shake,
Shake
which was a good thing.
with the cops. Um, he had a reason. He had a recent scuffle with during one of the term limit in the city council, which led to him being dragged out by the police and arrested. But he won his case. So he is a good he's a good activist on the ground level. I don't know if he has broad appeal outside of the urban community, but he can make some noise. But I don't know how much of a political future he has.
Well, he's still very young. Hector's
He's-
very, very
he's
young, and his heart's in it.
Yeah, he's very young. I wouldn't put nothing past him. I think we'll hear his name for. See, there's a political future as a candidate, and then there's a political
Yeah.
future in getting behind candidates. You know what I'm saying? So he will be involved in politics for the
Absolutely.
future.
Yeah.
I see my
So-
Shane is winning in New Rochelle.
Yeah, new face in New Rochelle, Shane Ozenloy, community activist, very involved guy, and he's doing great.
We endorsed him.
So far.
He unseated the incumbent in the primary.
It's incredible. And, he's kind of new to politics, and it'll be very interesting to see what he does. I first became acquainted with Shane. I actually went to high school with his aunt, but I became acquainted with Shane more recently. It was around the time that I started going on the WVOX show. He was involved when that crazy superintendent got hired in New Rochelle.
Right.
And but he's been very active ever since. And 4 out of 7 districts, so if 57% of the vote, he's way ahead. He's going to be fine. Looks
Wow.
like.
I've interviewed him several times. He's been involved even before you heard about him in politics. He's been
Yep.
on our show going back 5 or 6 years for different issues in the community, and he's always been boots on the ground. Can you go back to District 3 though? I'm curious about that race. District 3. Can you scroll up a little bit? Yeah. Okay. David Peters. That's the one that I'm watching. Kwame Dixon. David Peters is an activist, but an older activist. Kwame Dixon is a younger activist. We have
Right.
that generational shift a lot.
Yep.
He
Yep.
could be that young energy that comes in. If he and Shane win, that really brings a whole new dynamic to the council.
Still early in the night. Plenty of time left. Only 17% reporting.
I'm
Wow.
strongly watching that race as well. That's
Hey, AJ, I have a question for you about New Rochelle. It's the same question I had about Yonkers, which is, when you go down to New Rochelle, you can't believe the difference between, the main street and then the tall buildings that are just like jumping out of the ground.
District 3
Did
gets
those-
ignored a lot. The rest of District 3 is most of the black area, like a lot of the African American side of it. And it's not getting the same development as the rest of
But do the people in those high rises, do they vote?
That's a great question.
it's
Yeah.
a low turnout.
You think they would overwhelm the
A lot of African Americans are disenfranchised. They're frustrated. They think their vote doesn't count. They don't see anything change. They don't care who's been in office. I deal with that in Mount Vernon. They don't see the reason why they vote. They don't think their vote counts. So they don't vote. I'm trying to show them the importance of the vote. Where, like Kwame lost the primary by 22 votes in District 3. So 22 votes separated David Peters and Kwame Dixon in the primary. That's
Wow.
why.
But I think what Marty was asking, I think what Marty was asking was the people who are moving to the high rises, the new residents of New Rochelle, who I don't know what the racial makeup of the high rises, but I know the racial makeup of the high rises in White Plains is decidedly white, right next to the train station.
Right.
But the people in the high rises change the face of New Rochelle politics if they're engaged. Was that your point, Marty?
Yeah, that's my point. So, it seems to me like some of these buildings look like they have 2,000 apartments in them.
Right.
In a little, they're jumping out of the ground, and I'm wondering if those people vote, and if they did vote, what they would think about, because they're pretty much, I guess they're just coming from New York, or they're kind of coming from wherever they're coming from, and they're ordering on Amazon. They're really not in the community. They're just there,
They're
and
new
so
to
it'd
the
be interesting
community
to
as
see.
well too. They're usually a lot like in some of the buildings in Mount Vernon. Some of these people in Yonkers too. They're new to the community. They
Right,
work
they're
in the
brand new.
city.
They don't
They work
they
in the
don't know the
community.
history. They don't
They work.
know this
Yeah,
guy
they
did
work in the
that, or
city. They go back and forth to the city, but it's cheaper to
Right.
live here than it is in the city. So they're not ultra engaged in the community. And with that, I'll be right back. I'm going to take a bathroom break, so I'm turning my.
All right,
live
go
in-
ahead,
basically,
OJ.
to elaborate on your question, Marty, a lot of the people that live in these high rises, as AJ was saying, live in a privileged bubble. And I don't mean
right.
that in a snide sense. The way it's set up in New Rochelle and also in Yonkers, that these high rises are built within 50 seconds of the train station.
Yeah,
So somebody works in
right.
the city, they come home, they go to the train, there's a deli right there, or they can order out for Chinese food or whatever, and they don't necessarily have to interact with the local population. And they don't want to interact with the local population because some of that is very scary. You look at a place like, for example, X2O, which is a
Ardina, you hit the nail on the head. So in Yonkers, you go down there, and like their polling place is that library, which is this fantastic library. And then if you go 3 blocks away, the polling place is the I don't know what the school they call it.
you're not talking about the Neperhan Community Center, no.
Yeah, that's it, the Net Community Center, where it's two completely different worlds and about 400 yards apart.
Right, and nobody's gonna who's gonna go over there? Who's gonna go over there? Nobody's gonna go over there. I mean, nobody who is it feels who
Yeah.
wants to feel relatively safe. So there's
Ardina,
an issue.
we lost your video so we can hear you, Ardina, but we lost your picture for some reason. I have a theory. Perfect, you're back. Which is the folks who live in those high-rise buildings. First of all, you have to acknowledge that these are renters. They're renters. That's
Well,
first.
some of the buildings
right?
are rentals, some of them are not.
So in New Rochelle, it's overwhelmingly rentals. 6,000 apartments, probably 5,500 of them are rentals. And they're rentals at high rates of rent. And I suspect, to Marty's point, they're ordering on Amazon. They're working in New
Yep.
York City. They're working in other places. And they have a set of concerns. They have a world orientation that's not, the 4 square miles of New Rochelle or whatever it is. It's maybe a little more than 4 square miles. And I would venture a guess that the voter participation is fairly low, and they don't know the local church where the polling place is. They don't know the local school where the polling place is, and they're not connected to the community in that way. And as renters, they tend not to be living there very long. So the turnover also defines down the number of people who are going to participate in those elections living in those places. It's a good point, though. If they were politically active, it would seem like they could sweep politics.
But there's been no political outreach to them. I mean, you're right, Charlie, in that if they're new to the community, they don't know where to go. But at the same time, the council persons who represent their district have not reached out to them, have not listened to their issues. So there's this there is, it's not lack of apathy. It's just this feeling of, well, if they don't care about us, then why should we even bother to vote?
Yeah, that's right.
And that's really
There are some communities in Westchester that are not up county, that are overwhelmingly Republican. You look at, for instance, Eastchester, and all the races going on in Eastchester, there's only, I think, one that has a Democrat running for anything. And that's for village trustee, and that person has gotten 24% of the vote. So Eastchester would be an outlier.
Westchester is like the most complicated place on earth. Like,
Well, it
in one
wasn't
place you
that
got
way
all Republicans, in one place you got all Democrats, and another place you got people in high rises who don't vote at all.
because it wasn't always that way. Marty, you're from Westchester. I mean, we're all
Yeah.
from Westchester. It was more. It's always been divided. It's always been a question of the haves and the have-nots. But I think due to national politics, it's tended to make more divisions, and it's complicated the whole political process a lot. Pardon my cat. I just don't want her getting tangled up here in the cat. This is Buddha, by the way. Say hi, Buddha.
Hi, Buddha.
Hello,
Hey,
Buddha.
Buddha.
That's
So
Buddha.
we're starting to get some
AJ,
of the.
now we see you. You're back.
Yeah,
AJ,
welcome
are
back,
you eating
AJ.
are you eating something good? What are you eating?
So I haven't eaten today, so I ordered something and it just came.
Okay.
I'm turning on and
AJ,
off.
you can turn off your camera. We don't need to see you eat. It's all right.
I'm watching this race. I'm watching this race in Tuckahoe too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we're
Yeah, I was
starting to
just
get
talking
the
about- yeah.
villages.
Stop.
We're,
Villages and the towns are starting to come as Sheila Marcotte, and there's a name that's been rolling around Eastchester forever. Sheila Marcotte with
There's no
6 districts
Democrat.
reporting.
There's no Democrat running in this race, and it's you vote for 2. So I mean, that's all you got.
Vote for
You know,
2.
Overwhelmingly Italian communities in Westchester.
No,
There's
there's a
almost no
conservative.
Democratic Party.
It is contested.
Wow.
There is a conservative. So there's 3 people running. You got to
That's
vote for
another
2.
kind of Republican, though. Conservative.
Actually, I agree. I agree with that.
True. I would agree with that too. Let's see what's going on in the trustee races. So
Tuckahoe.
we're not seeing a lot of numbers out of there yet. I guess that takes longer. Peter, you have more experience with that, but
But there's
There they
no
are.
Democrat running in Tuckahoe.
Yes, there is.
Yes, there is.
Yes,
Not. Can you scroll up a little bit?
okay,
Oh,
yeah, there's a Democrat running for
mayor's-
mayor.
Yes, in the mayor's race there is, but in the other
current mayor
parts,
the current mayor is Democrat, and Josh. If you scroll down to the council, Josh, his name. If you scroll up a little bit, that yeah, Joshua, whatever his, I can't pronounce his last name.
Giaccone.
Gaccione.
Yes,
Giaccone.
he's
Gaccione.
right.
What about him?
No, he's Democrat. You said there was no Democrat. I was saying there's a Democrat.
Oh, okay. Yes, he is. He's got some to vote. You're right. He's got some.
And I don't know Tuckahoe too well. Or is he an incumbent?
Is he an incumbent? I don't know. I know he's on the
Yeah, I don't
ticket
know.
with the mayor because I've interviewed them. Joshua and Darrell Taylor were the 2 that were on the ticket with the mayor. It doesn't look like they're either doing too well though.
Well,
Well, he's got 116. No, but Darrell Lang, the Republican, is out. Yes, that's a lot more than him.
yeah, the Republican is getting votes, but it's in one district, and sometimes
And
you
also,
hit
what's that Conservative Party? CSP, is that conservative?
CSP.
What is that?
I don't know what party that
Well,
is.
they have they're second, so is the Republican and the CSP candidate that are first and second. Oh, well, that's a Republican. Excuse me, that's a Republican too.
You know what's interesting about Tuckahoe is that Tuckahoe used to have a fairly substantial black community in addition to the Italians, but those numbers have fallen considerably. Like right now, it's 61% white, 20% Hispanic, and 11.1% Asian. So the black community in Tuckahoe is much, much smaller than it was. AJ and Marty, we can't see your faces right now.
Like Yonkers, people are being outpriced in Tuckahoe.
Yeah.
In the new building.
Which is a thing. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I spoke in that Juneteenth program, and when they were telling me what the rent was for these new buildings, I was like, who can afford that?
Yeah, but there
Well-
used to be a decent-sized black community in Tuckahoe. They're gone.
They're being priced out.
But just as he says, I mean, this is happening also in Yonkers, where low-income housing is being raised and it's being replaced with expensive housing. I don't know where these people are going. I mean, the case in point is Cottage Gardens, which was it was a housing project, not as notorious as Slobum, but it was a relatively not great housing project. It was razed. It no longer exists. The buildings were torn down, and the people who lived in cottage gardens were promised to be relocated. A few of them were, but not all of them. So the number of people that were displaced is far greater than the people who were basically given alternative living conditions, alternative living places.
That's going
And
on
you're
in
going to see this
Greenberg.
more and more.
That's going on in Greenberg as well. A
It's
lot of
just it
seniors,
is what
a lot of people are outpriced when the Greenberg housing authority rebuilt those buildings and renovated them and refurbished whatever, did new buildings. A lot of the people can't afford when they to come back to those buildings that live there.
and you're going to see it more
Speaking
and more and more.
speaking of Greenberg, Paul Feiner running unopposed as usual.
Right.
What is this? Is like his 65th term in office?
It's like,
He runs every 2 years, so this is his, I think, 16th. I believe this is the 16th term. Yes,
He stood us up tonight.
but
Yep.
he's an interesting character because there have been times he didn't get the Democratic endorsement and still won. Like he's won with the party, he's won without the party. He doesn't need the party. He just wins. Like, and he's been winning
Because
for
but
32 years.
they like him. Finders always deliver. And this is speaking of permanent mayors and permanent parties. I wanted to ask Marty. You know, Irvington has. I did some research, and Irvington has had only two mayors from 2009 until present day, and it's basically been the same people. So how does that happen?
Well, why don't we ask Marty that?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I was asking Marty.
yeah,
That's directed
I'm
to Marty.
thinking it over. I remember back in the day, Irvington had a tied election once. Did you remember that one?
No.
We had a tied election. There was a guy named Dennis Flood who was the mayor, and I forget who was running against, but they tied. They each had 782 votes or something like that, and they tried to flip a coin to see who would be mayor.
But you have Jonathan Siegel in now, correct?
It's been Brian Smith for some time, and I think Brian, very, very well liked, and I think he just decided he didn't want to do it. So, when you talk about the mayor of a village like Irvington, you're talking about it's not a part-time job. I know it's a full-time job, but it's basically a part-time job. It's not well compensated. I think you get paid $5,000 a year to be the mayor.
Wow.
So, and then really the village manager, who does a great job there, a guy named Larry Schaffler, they kind of do most of the administrative work, and the mayor's responsible for strategy and keeping an overview of things.
So Marty, is there a race in Irvington right now?
I assume
Unopposed. He's unopposed. It's Jonathan
Yeah.
Siegel, but he's unopposed.
Okay.
Right.
So,
That
but
sounds
what
pretty
I'm
sure
trying to
we're pretty sure he's going to win.
What you described sound like New Rochelle. Now, New Rochelle has a city manager system. That is the head person, not the mayor. Like the city manager makes the appointments of, the police commissioner and all that stuff that mayors do in Mount Vernon and Yonkers and other stuff.
Yeah, it's a completely different thing. The other, just again, anecdotally, the other place that's true is Miami, where I think the mayor in Miami doesn't really have any power. So, but Brian's done a great job as mayor. He's used the power that he has pretty well, but I think he works full time, and I think he'd had a great run, and it was time for somebody else to come in.
No results
I'm
yet.
losing my battery, guys. I don't know why. So I'm going to have to switch over to. I'm going to have to plug this in. Just allow me a few minutes to disconnect my audio plug, and I'm going to have to figure out how to do this. I'll still be with you, but
it's the old iPhone problem where you can't plug in headphones and power at the same time.
So I'm going to have to switch.
I'd like to ask AJ a question though, because I think AJ said something real interesting before, and it's November 7th, so we're on elections. But AJ, you mentioned a couple of times how the Yonkers thing with the term limits was done not kind of behind the scenes, and I've talked to Peter and Ardina before about the redistricting, and how that's also being done kind of behind the scenes. And now we have on November 15th, which is in 8 days, we have a comment period between now and then to put in comments on redistricting, and then there's going to be the state Supreme Court, and the whole process will start again. How do you think about that, AJ? Because it strikes me that it's also been kind of done behind scenes, and that's not usually a good result in democracy.
I went to the redistricting, the public forums they had. They had one at Pace before, and while there were a lot of complaints and they took a lot of the um, comments, it seemed like they still did what they wanted to do. It seemed like it didn't seem like the public had any influence on, too much influence on what was done, especially with
Yeah.
especially with the congressional district 16, which is Jamal Bowman's district. There were people on the Bronx side and in Westchester side saying that they wanted to stay connected. You know what I mean? And they wanted, instead
Yeah.
of breaking up their district, and they lost part of that district, lost part of the Bronx, so. I don't know.
Well, that's going to be
Got a
we're
special-
going to have
got
a we're going
special
to and
master
it's
again,
going to
right?
that's going to come pretty quickly. It's going to be another next week. That's when the oral arguments go to the Supreme Court, and that's when we have to put our comments into the redistricting commission. So it's almost like 24 is starting next week.
Now, we should point out that Marty has declared that he's going to be a candidate in Congressional District 16.
Oh, okay. And next year for the 24th, for the 24th. Okay.
Correct.
So that's one
Yes.
more. That's one more. Okay.
Well, actually, it's not one more. I was in a month ago.
I didn't know that. I did not know that.
I mean, the
about
big
George. I know
question,
about
the big
George,
question in that
pastor-
race,
A pastor
the
from-
big question in that race is George, and George.
Yes, he's not announcing. For what I know about George, he's even the whole leaking that there was interest in him running. That was all to see what kind of support. Like George has not lost in a race. He won like 20 elections or something. He doesn't.
Yes.
So he doesn't get in a race that he knows he can lose. So he's waiting. When you hear him announce, his people have told him he has the numbers to win.
Right.
And right
There's
now,
an
I don't know
expression.
Hey, hold on for
You-
a second. Hold on
you-
for a second. I
Yeah.
haven't lost a race either.
Okay, how many races have you won?
But you haven't
Well,
run.
that's another question.
Oh, but I said he hasn't lost a race. He won like 22 of them.
Yeah, I'm
was
aware
a,
of that.
There was a part
Right.
two of that. There was a
Right,
part-
right. I mean, I think the only race where
I
maybe
haven't
he
lost a
turned
race either.
around.
I haven't lost a race
Right.
either.
I would say there is one
Exactly.
exception.
Both
There is one
of you.
exception, AJ, which was I believe there was a race where he was contemplating running, and Andrew Cuomo got into the race,
Right.
and he backed out.
Because he didn't think he was going to beat Andrew Cuomo, and he
Right.
yeah. And I said he's won
Right.
22 races in a row. I think he's never lost a race. On
No, he's very popular. He's very popular. He's a fairly centrist guy that has really endeared a lot of support from progressive Democrats recently. And there is no question, and I'm not saying this to agitate Marty, but he would be a formidable candidate if he decides to run.
This like
against
Paul,
Bowman.
like Paul Feiner, he seems to work 18 hours a day. Last night I put something up on a Portchester website about whether anyone in the community has reached out to the synagogue and to the very few Jews who are left in Portchester. And George responded on this obscure Facebook group with his bona fides to how many synagogues he's been to in the past month and how many Jewish groups he has spoken to. I mean, he's on all the time. And that's going to make him, that's why he has been formidable. And that's why he's, I think if he goes and runs against Bowman, I don't know how Bowman's going to win. I could be completely wrong. But I don't see how anyone could beat Latimer if he has a strong group of people behind him.
It was the Jewish community, several Jewish groups that were pushing him to run.
Right.
It was, but he's starting to get letters from progressives, the Anti-Racism Alliance, and a bunch of progressives, basically asking him not to run against Bowman.
Right.
So we'll see where that lands with him. But
I wouldn't declare it in ink over, but it depends on a few things. I mean, right now, Israel and Palestine is dominating the headlines.
Right.
That might not be the case in 6 months. You just don't know. I think it probably will be, but you don't know. And there could be some other issue. That's the thing about primaries, is that something can change, something goes a certain way, and it can change overnight.
That's
So, and that is the one fascinating thing, even in a one-party town like Westchester, where the primaries can surprise you. And so there's that. Interesting thing here with these Supreme Court justices is that the Republicans don't seem to be able to move the needle. I'm going to just mute myself for a second.
So, guys, while Charlie's off with us right now, what do you see as the tipping point in 2024 for the presidential election? Is it Donald Trump going to jail, or is it that Joe Biden continues to lose his sense of primacy?
Biden's sinking like a stone. I mean, when you look at the polls, as much as you can value the polls across the board, he's losing by he's losing by droves. The people don't have a lot of confidence in Biden. They don't have a lot of confidence in Biden. Number one, you got to look at how Biden has basically dissed Eric Adams in New York. I mean, even Hochul is turning on Biden with the migrant issue. I mean, they've been begging for money for the last 6 months, and the White House has basically blown them off. So even
What do you guys think, AJ and Marty?
So I think it's really too early to tell. I think that this
Obviously,
is,
it's too early to tell.
Bernie Sanders was, I'll give you a better example than Bernie Sanders was all over Biden early on. And it was fine to vote for Bernie Sanders, and he was ahead. And, Biden was not even in the race until South Carolina. And then in 2 weeks, he turned it around, because there's a difference between people taking a poll a year before an election, which is just a poll, and when they're actually confronted between the choice of, did you want Bernie Sanders for the Democratic Party, or did you want Joe Biden? And I think it's going to be the same thing if it turns into Biden versus Trump, which we don't know that yet. But I think actually voters are having the choice to vote for Trump or for Biden. I think it's going to be a different thing. I don't pay too much attention to those polls right now.
I think it's too early to tell as well. And let's face it, there may be a scenario where neither one of them are the candidates of the party. I'm not saying they won't be, but there is a scenario where there is neither one of them are the candidate for the party, and we're having a whole other conversation. So,
AJ, I totally agree with you, AJ. There's a great place for new faces.
yeah.
Oh,
At
listen,
all-
who's
at all
talking
levels.
here?
Right.
well, there's probably more promise on the Republican side for new candidates than there is on the Democratic side. I mean, who do you have so far? You've got Chris Christie, DeSantis, and those aren't exactly stellar candidates, right?
You have Nikki Haley. She's done well lately.
It's making a little bit of noise.
But is the country?
And I do think too. There's a difference between, Trump is in court, he's on trial, all that, but he's going to potentially be convicted in 3 different courts in another 90 days, another 120 days. And I think this is starting to wear him out. That's what Chris Christie's perspective.
I don't
Let's
think so.
remember one thing.
I don't think so.
Let's remember one thing.
I think every time, this thing is the best thing that could ever happen to Donald Trump,
Right.
because it's more airtime. It's more time in front of the camera. It's more anger. It's more vitriol. It's more negativity, and he can't lose with that formula. So this thing, unless one of those convictions disqualifies him, it just helps him.
That's the question. What does it mean? What does it mean if he is convicted? Since
Right.
this is set precedent, it's never happened before.
It depends on which jurisdiction.
If he's convicted of sedition, which is interfering with the election, I think that's a big problem.
But then will that disqualify him from being a candidate for the presidency?
That would be
the
you-
sedition. Right?
sedition. Are you talking about the January 6th sedition
yes.
or the
Yes.
or the Atlanta trial
No,
sedition?
January 6th.
Okay.
January 6th.
That's the only thing I think that would disqualify. There's a whole thing where that they've been bringing up lately, where former presidents have Secret Service for life. So there's that whole, if he is convicted and sent to jail,
Is he entitled to it?
he will
Can
still
he
be
serve?
entitled to it. How do you work out that dynamics? Because we've never had this scenario before. This is not, the forefathers never pre-thought this. We never had this scenario.
I don't think it's a big problem. If he goes to a federal prison, federal prisons can handle other federal workers, Secret Service or federal workers. They'll work it out. The question is, can he be disqualified from running? Are there state election laws that will be violated if he is convicted? In other words, are there any state laws triggered by a conviction? And I don't know the answer.
Yes. Hold on.
I think
Yes, there
January 6th
are.
is the only thing that I know for sure.
Yeah.
Because that's taking over, trying to take, that's
Right. That's what you said before, AJ. That would be a seditious conspiracy to overthrow the government.
right. And
I guess there are some states that have laws that would be triggered by that. And I hope that's what happens, because otherwise he has a good chance of winning.
Exactly. That's the whole point. We're not sure if sedition disqualifies him from being president.
This
Well,
is why the
in
Republicans are having.
terms of
This is
where
why the Republicans. Hold on. This is why the Republicans are having a hard time in Westchester, because when you're talking about the head of your party, in sedition, criminal fraud, and election interference in Georgia, and also the sensitive documents in Palm Beach. I mean, this guy's just a bit. I think he's a terrible impact on the rest of the ticket.
Yeah.
Well, in terms of two things, one's kind of a joke and the other one's not. In terms of where they're going to house him if he goes to federal prison, my prediction is that they take a part of an army base or some other federal property that has high security, and they give him one of those buildings where the Secret Service has entry, where he has his own food coming in and all that sort of thing. And the funny thing is that if he goes into federal prison, Vito Genovese was able to run his crime family from prison. Maybe Trump thinks that, and the Republicans think that he can run the country from prison.
Club Fed.
It's happened before.
Right. The funny thing is, with the names we threw out, DeSantis and Nikki Haley, they're not even trying to become president. They're competing for the number 2 spot.
Yeah, right now.
Or some spot. They may be. I mean, Haley is the only one.
They're actively competing for the number 2 spot at this point.
Right.
Like, and I think Haley has just edged DeSantis a little bit in that too. So.
Yeah, the stakes are just so high. It's absolutely scary. We have a couple of comments here on YouTube. Norwan says the reason Ruth, I think she's referring to Ruth Walter is having such a hard race is because Spano and his Democratic Party are supporting Nolan. I'm confused. Nolan is opposing Ruth Walter. She's talking about Ruth Walter. Okay.
Nolan unseated Ruth Walter, and now Ruth is running to get her seat back.
Got it. And then she says it has nothing to do with local issues. Ruth has been tireless in working to help solve the flooding problem, and that is true. She is knowledgeable on that subject.
Right.
No question about it.
Gassi just declared himself the winner.
Okay, so Gashi won. Well,
All right, let's go and check that.
It's on News 12 right now.
He's
Okay,
on
I'm
News
gonna
12
go.
right now.
I'm going to bring in News 12. Hold on a second, guys. So here's how we do
And so
this.
far in the Mamaroneck for village mayor, the independent is beating Murphy by 22%.
Wow.
that speaks volumes.
Absolutely.
No wonder Lou hasn't called in.
You guys can still hear me, correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Yes, you can.
Actually, Lou did call, and he said he was having trouble reaching our studio. So I'm hoping he'll try again. I texted him.
Okay, tell him to give it another shot because Lou is always good to have on. And Moranti, I don't know. Moranti hasn't responded?
Moranti has not responded.
Okay, because he's in the thick of it now.
So we're looking for News 12. Hold on a second here.
They're talking to our county executive. Yadira Ramos Herbert declares herself the winner in the New Rochelle mayoral race.
Well, she has become the first Afro-Latina to become mayor of New Rochelle.
Yes. Charlie, you with us?
I'm with you. I'm trying to get News
Okay.
12 onto the feed.
Marty and AJ and Ardina, we can't see you.
I am still here.
AJ's still eating his takeout.
I'm eating in between.
AJ.
I am
So-
still
By the
here.
way, AJ, what did you order?
A sandwich from Subway.
A sandwich or so. That sounds mysterious. What, you don't want to tell us what it is?
Pepper. There's like a Philly cheesesteak with all kinds of stuff in it and extra meat.
You're in southern
Ardina-
Westchester, and the best you could do is Subway?
Well,
Ardina, how's Moranti
I
doing
need
in
something else to
Yonkers?
come quick.
You know, I don't know, Marty. I'm trying to get some input. I'm on my other computer. I'm looking at Yonkers Voice, and nothing has come through yet. So I mean, this is kind of a nail biter, wouldn't you say?
It
So
was 53-47 before, right?
is News 12 the same thing as News 12 New York?
No,
News
News
12
12 Westchester.
Yeah.
News 12 Westchester.
Don't know if that feed is available.
C'est la vie.
Let's see. Okay, my battery's on 10%,
Okay,
but the phone is
maybe
plugged
dial
in.
into
So
that
if you lose
347.
me, I will get another phone. But I'm hanging.
Moranti right now has
So
36% of the vote versus Spano's 61% of the vote.
Lou is
65
coming in here, guys. Lou is coming
Okay.
in.
Pano's lead has increased.
Hang on 1 second. Lou, are you able to hear us? Lou, are you there? Hello,
I'm
Lou.
there, yes.
Okay,
Yes.
we can hear you, Lou. Go ahead. What do you got?
Okay, well, in the village of Mamaroneck, there's been an upset that a third-party challenger has defeated the incumbent mayor. The numbers are still a little bit up in the air, but he just conceded.
He conceded?
Yeah. So the Sharon Torres will be the next mayor of Mamaroneck, the village, and there was also a proposal on the ballot to synchronize the village elections with the federal schedule. That was defeated as well. So there was a kind of a backlash, an anti-incumbent backlash, and throw the bums out kind of a mood there. And
Well, Lou, what do
that's
you attribute that to?
How did that happen, Lou?
well, I mean,
Lou, we
Still
can't
there?
hear you.
We lost you.
Wow.
Lou. Sound like we lost you.
We got the flash report, and now the lines were cut. I hope those people from Mamaroneck are not taking it out on him.
Right. He said throw the bums out and the powers to be.
Yeah,
shut
that's
off.
it.
Well, that's
Except Lou's not a bum.
that you know, but you know something, guys. That is I gotta say that's a shocker because Sharon Torres has no political experience. I think her profession is, I believe she works in human resources. She's from the South Bronx, raised by a single mother, and has done quite well for herself. And now she has become the mayor of the village of Mamaroneck. So again, the question is, how did that happen?
And if we can get Lou back on the phone, we'll find out the answer.
Who was she running against, Ardina?
She's running against Tom Murphy, who I believe is
Tom's an elevator mechanic.
He was a former elevator mechanic.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
what goes up must come down.
I mean, Tom's a super nice guy. I don't know what happened in that election.
I think there was a lot of issues with the flooding problem, and that was sort of the main focus or the main theme of his being mayor.
So that was
And-
that was the litmus test. If he passed
That was-
that, he probably would have won.
And you had, I think that, well, number one, you got to look at the fact that there were two major floods while he has been mayor, and nobody was satisfied. A lot of people got wiped out, a lot of businesses got destroyed, and there were ruminations about they didn't like the way it was handled. So they got money from FEMA. They vowed that they meaning the administration vowed that they would clean it up, and then along came the second flood. It wasn't as bad as the first flood recently, but it didn't happen. So people just became dissatisfied with what was going on. And they would, I mean, I'm not saying it was totally Murphy's fault. I mean, look, it's weather is weather, and the Army Corps of Engineers has been in Mamaroneck. They have changed the direction of the way the water flows, but the problem hasn't been solved, and people want results.
Throw the
You
You know
thumbs
what's
out.
interesting
That's
in the
it.
town of Rye, which comprises Portchester, Rye Brook, and Rye Neck. The incumbent there is Gary Zuckerman, and he's leading, but it's by he and the Republican conservative Noella Candelaria are neck and neck. They're actually no, they're completely even. They both have 1,603 votes. That's interesting.
Well, if this was Irvington, we'd flip a coin.
Yeah, it may come to that.
But you know what's surprising is that that the voter turnout was so low in that area, because those are real.
Well, I don't know if there's any chance that Murphy conceded and he would be wrong, because as things stand right now, he's trailing 530 votes to 475, and that's 7 out of 15 districts reported. They probably have more information than we do than what's listed. With
Yeah,
the,
you wouldn't
with
concede.
the
You wouldn't
Westchester-
concede.
Excuse me?
You wouldn't concede if it was less than half the districts,
Less than
and
half.
you were only behind by that much.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, he's already had, I believe it's 2 terms, and he just may be at a point in his political career where he says, okay, that's enough. Hand it over to somebody else and not try and contest the results.
The other thing is that there's a lot of, as you know, Ardina, since you're from Mamaroneck, there's a lot of complicated issues that take place in Mamaroneck, and maybe the people of Mamaroneck think that maybe she has more savvy and a deeper understanding of things than Murphy might. I don't know that for a fact, and if we can get Lou
It's a
back
lot
on the
simpler.
phone.
It's a lot
maybe-
simpler than that. Mamaroneck is now 30% Hispanic.
Yes. Oh, by the way, look who's showing up. My friend, Justin Brash.
Hey, Justin, how you doing?
Good morning, good evening. Hello, AJ. Hello, Peter and Charles. How's everybody?
And Ardina and Marty Dolan, too.
Hey,
So,
Justin.
you've been looking at, I'm at White Plains, the Democrats swept, which was to be
We almost
expected.
got, for the first time ever, we almost got 3/4 of the vote. So we worked hard, we were proud, and we're trying to run a good city. So we're definitely feeling good about things tonight. I just left.
Have you been looking at other results, or you've been totally focused on just White Plains?
Just White Plains. I was literally campaigning at the train station until, I don't know, 7:30, 8 o'clock.
Wow.
Yeah, Justin is a hardworking man. The only time you can't reach Justin, for good reason, is during Shabbat, because he is a Sabbath-keeping Jew. But other than those hours, anytime I've ever reached out to Justin, he's picked up the phone. And AJ, I'm sure you've had that same experience with Justin.
Yes.
So here's something interesting, sidebar. Yusef Salam from the Central Park 5 has won a New York City Council seat.
Yeah,
I
you
am
can
so
see that.
I'm so excited. I got to know him pretty well. We've interviewed him several times, even before the documentary and stuff. He's been on our show, and one of the things he told me, he said he's getting a chance. He got railroaded by the system, and now he's in a position to make the laws in that system. And he is.
And just think, if Donald Trump had gotten his way when he took out the ad in 1989, he'd have been put to death.
He had his
Right.
hands
He'd
on
been
that
put
too.
to death.
Right, and so that is an amazing story You know, he got railroaded. He spent that time in jail, and now he's on the body that makes the laws for the city, so he can.
He seems to
actually-
be a
And I
very.
both, Ardina and
just
I
wanna say-
both worked that tragedy from the outset. So we got to say,
It was
Ardina,
hard.
you
What's
And
still
I,
nice
with
to
us?
see is he seems like such a positive guy who's going to really make positive change and care about everybody. I mean, he really seems to be such a sincere and terrific person, and he's really going to make a really positive contribution.
He
guys,
certainly has a political future in front of him.
I had 3 phone calls at one time. What did Lou say about Mamaroneck? If you could just repeat that for my benefit.
Lou said that that Murphy lost.
Murphy conceded. He said,
That
Lou
Murphy
said Murphy
conceded.
conceded.
Got it.
He said, and the voters said, throw the bums out. That's the last thing he said before he got.
The last thing Lou said was, is Lou coming back with us, Charlie, or you don't know?
He might call back in. I'm ready to receive the call, but I haven't heard from him so far.
Okay.
Another interesting race that we didn't talk about was the Greenberg town clerk, where you had the incumbent not make the ballot because of some signature situation and running on a independent kind of line, and the challenger basically mopping the floor with her right now. You know, it's a weird dynamic.
Yeah,
Sorry, who won that race?
Well, Lisa Marie Nero is it was the challenger. Judith Baville was the
Right.
incumbent. She's working on she's running on a minor party, the Greenberg something party or something like that.
Right.
Like an independent party.
She's
But
on an
she
independent
was-
party,
she
and
was-
she's getting clobbered, AJ. It's
She's
Lisa
getting
Nero's
clobbered. I just looked at the numbers. She's being
Yeah.
clobbered.
Sorry, who's getting clobbered? Is Judith Baville getting clobbered?
Judith Baville is getting clobbered.
clobbered. Yes.
I mean, look, the people that she ran that campaign with committed fraud on their petitions.
Right.
So I don't have much compassion. As somebody who stands on the streets like you guys and gets petition signatures, I don't have a lot of compassion for people who fool around with that stuff, right?
But
AJ,
Justin,
AJ,
Yep.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
does Edgemont, the residents of Edgemont vote in the Greenberg elections?
Good question.
Yes, they do. Yes, they absolutely
I
do.
believe.
Okay,
No, they absolutely do.
okay, that's an
Without any
important
question.
fact. Because remember, there was the issue where Edgemont, and it's an ongoing issue, Edgemont wants to secede from
At any
Greenberg.
rate, I don't think that's much of a surprise once you don't, she didn't get the Democratic, Judith Baville didn't get the Democratic nomination. And that seems pretty fair under the circumstances. Lisa Nero seems like a lovely person, right?
Yeah, she's got 80%, and she has 80% of the vote, Joe.
I've met her a number of times, though. She seems smart and articulate and wants to work and help everybody. She seems like she's really going to be great in that job.
But I still want to go back to my question. How much do you think, Julia, did the voters of Edgemont have to do with influencing the outcome in Greenberg, if at all?
Justin?
I actually don't have.
Yeah, I didn't have much more to say, just that I've met her several times. She's good friends with my good friend Sabomi
No,
McCall,
no,
who's-
Justin, what Ardina was asking whether the people who live in Edgemont are levers for people getting elected or losing.
Ardina, I think the Edgemont movement
I can't
has lost
answer
some
that
of its
question.
leadership.
It's not-
I
Really?
think that's lost.
I'm happy to see
Yeah,
these numbers in front
the
of
key
us
guy
where
there no longer
Yadira's
lives in
doing a
Edgemont.
good job.
Ah,
and,
that's a good point.
In
So
New
he was,
Rochelle and Martha Lopez, if you've ever worked with her, is
Okay,
really
kind
one
of
of
talking
the
over each other. Marty,
leading public servants in our county. Just such a decent
Yeah,
person.
Justin. Yeah, I don't think Justin, if you have a pair of headphones, I think you need to use them because you're not hearing the other people talking.
Yeah, let Marty finish his point about
For my
Edgemont.
headphones, hold on. I usually don't have that problem. Who's speaking that I can't hear?
Marty was talking about the voters in
You're
Edgemont
right,
and
I
the
can't hear.
influence
I hear AJ when he talks, but let me try to find some headphones.
Okay.
Houston, we
By
got
the
a
way,
problem.
News 12 just put up a Chiron. We were talking about Chirons before. They misspelled Paul Finer's name.
Wow.
And does it
AI,
really
baby, AI.
matter? He's on his 65th term in office, so it's and he ran unopposed.
as long as he
Yes.
has been in office, they should have learned how to spell his name by now. So I mean,
Yes.
that's a typo.
Should be
Yes, it
copy and
is.
paste. I agree.
Anyway, Ardina. So I think the Edgemont leadership has moved out of Edgemont. I think that movement is losing a little bit of energy. So
I
your
gotta go to
point
my
is a good one,
phone
which
and
is
then I'll get the headphones there. Sorry.
here,
Ay,
here comes
Okay.
Justin again. So your question's a good one, which is normally you'd expect Edgemont to agitate against Greenberg,
Right.
but I think the leader of that movement is no longer in Edgemont. So I don't know, maybe someone else has taken up the cause behind them, but I think that movement has kind of cooled off a little bit.
Oh, it's lost
So I
its
want to
steam.
change. I want to change subjects for a minute, because Justin's on with us now, and I completely forgot what I was going to ask him. Oh, do you believe that George is going to run for Congress, Justin?
I'm changing. Yes.
And can you expand on the yes,
Yeah.
please?
Could you give us a little more?
Let me just.
Are we gonna come? We're gonna come back to Justin after he gets reconnected.
Right. 'Cause
Okay.
All right,
Okay,
let's take a look at a couple of these other races. So let's go back here and just see where we stand in Yonkers. 65. We get 29% reporting, and surprise, surprise, Mike Spano is considerably way out front.
would say
Morante's holding it up with 2,100 votes, and Mike Spano's got 3,500 votes. But we're not quite there yet. And in Yonkers, there are pockets where there's a high density of Republicans, so that could move a little bit. The needle could move a little bit, but it's looking very likely that Mike Spano will be reelected.
But you know what's sort of surprising is that there's such a low count. It would be pretty shocking if the Yonkers race was determined by 6,000 votes. That really would show a new low for voter turnout.
And swinging over to Pelham, we have mayor running unopposed. That seems to be the way here in Westchester. You get the Democratic Party nomination, and you run unopposed in the general election. And that's certainly the case here in Pelham, where a personal friend of mine, Chance Mullen, has been reelected mayor.
And what about the race in Pelham that you were predicting an upset?
That is a county legislator race. And let's see where he stands right now with that. I think it was District 11.
Yes.
Yep. So it's 60-40 right now. Terry Clements, the incumbent. Justin is coming back in. The incumbent is Terry Clements with 60% of the vote. John Hines with 44% of the vote. And 39% of the votes having been counted.
Justin, you have to turn. Okay, he did.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. I think I'm back in some
So
capacity.
why do you think that George is going to run, and what do you think the odds are that he'll win?
I think the odds are pretty high. I think that he. I think he feels it's important that. I think he's offended by the approach that Jamal Bowman has taken towards on a number of issues, and that they're contrary to the, general feeling of how we practice government and politics in Westchester. I know for myself, I was extremely hurt the other day when Jamal Bowman didn't vote to condemn anti-Semitism on campus and to protect students on campus. There are many things we can agree or disagree on, but he's taking some positions that are very extreme. He didn't vote for the Build Back Better infrastructure bill. I know that myself, I've worked very hard to build a relationship with Congressman Bowman, and it really hasn't worked, to tell you the truth. And to try to build bridges and an understanding, and to have him understand a bit more about the Jewish community. Of course, my position politically on all these issues is no different than Mondaire Jones. So it's not like I have a pretty left-wing position on these issues, but I believe that George is going to run. I think he's bothered by Congressman Bowman's approach to things.
AJ,
So
what's
is
your
that is
reaction?
that
AJ, what's your reaction to what Justin just said?
What part of it? That George, I, I still don't know. I believe it's a good chance that George might run too. We're waiting for an official announcement. He's probably waiting till he has, like I said, the support that he feels that he needs, that he's going to win before he announces. Um, I can say I have interviewed Congressman Bowman on all the issues that you brought up. I know we had a big interview with him right after the Build Back Better bill because a lot of people in his district wanted some answers. So I had him on, and had a lot of the people in the district asking him questions, and he answered them. He, originally, in his eyes, the Build Back Better bill was supposed to be part this, and the other part that included, I forgot what it included, got taken out. The part that they were fighting for. He knew that it would win, but he voted no to make a point because they took out the other part that he was voting for, that he wanted in there. So that's why he voted no on that.
So I remember hearing that same explanation, but what I'm
This
what
is
I,
he said. That's all I'm saying. I'm not.
no, I recall, and I recall hearing that explanation. My question for Justin is, based on what you're saying, the race for CD16 next year is going to turn into a referendum on Israel.
I
believe so.
think that will be a major issue, Israel and the Jewish community. But remember, Congressman Bowman did not vote for the debt ceiling compromise where President Biden needed his votes. Congressman Bowman, as I said, did not vote for Build Back Better. As our friend, my very close friend, County Legislator Tyree Woodson Samuel says, he runs around the district and says he's brought money to Mount Vernon, for sewers, and it's based on Build Back Better, but he didn't vote for Build Back Better.
Can I say
So there are going to be a lot of there will be other issues, and I know for myself I'm very sad. I tried very hard to build a relationship with Congressman Bowman, and I was not successful.
I just wanted to add one thing though, especially in the beginning. And Tyree is a very good friend of mine. He also has Woodson in his name. We call each other cousins. So,
Well, he's like a cousin to me. So,
but I've learned being the editor of Black Westchester to understand when people come to me, they do have some kind of underlying agenda. Tyree worked for Engel. Bowman took out Engel. You understand what I'm saying? There was a little feelings about that when in the beginning, in the very beginning. I'm sure he got over it now, but there was not really feeling Jamal for that reason. He took out his boss, like, you know what I mean? Like, and Engel was loved and had been there for 31 years. So, so some of the things, so Tyree never into this. He didn't like him from the beginning. That's all I'm just saying. He really didn't
I mean,
like.
that's possible, but I find
But
Tyree to be.
Bowman has given people enough reasons to be mad and not like him on their own, though. So.
I mean, look.
We didn't need an excuse.
I mean, look.
I still support him, though. Uh-huh.
I'm gonna tell you, like, my initial interaction with Congressman Bowman was nothing short of a disaster. I approached him at 2 years ago at the Black Women's Political Caucus dinner, and I simply said, and he was not my congressman at the time. Mondaire Jones was my congressman. I simply said to him, Congressman Bowman, I'm Justin Brash. I'm a councilman in White Plains. I'm a very unimportant guy. You're an important congressman. I'd love to get a cup of coffee with you sometime and talk about issues of concern to the Jewish community and about Israel. And I was shocked by the reaction because in Westchester County, if you go up to Andrea, if you go up to Shelley, if you go up to George or Ken or any other public official and you say, I'd like to have a cup of coffee with you and talk to you about an issue, their response is like, of course, I would love to talk to you. He said, why? He was very confrontational with me. He was very angry with me. And I was very surprised, to tell you the truth, because I just wanted to have a civil discussion and share with, I remember how it started. He says, well, why do you want to talk to me? I said, I'd just like to talk to you. And he said, why do you want to talk to me? I said, people say things about you, and I don't know if any of it's true or not, so let's get a cup of coffee.
And did you get the cup of coffee?
I did not get the cup of coffee, to tell you the honest truth. I don't want to say which Black official, but about a year later, a Black official that I'm very close with was surprised that I didn't have a relationship with Jamal Bowman. He said, I can get you together with Jamal Bowman, no problem. And that official went to Jamal Bowman and said, I'd like you to get together with my friend Justin Brash.
And Justin, for the sake of understanding this context of this story, were you a White Plains council member at this time?
Yes.
Yes, the whole time.
Okay.
The whole time.
Go ahead.
I mean, I'm currently the council president even, but that doesn't even matter. What difference does it make? And so my very prominent black friend said to me, you know, let's get together with my friend Justin Brash, whatever it is. And he refused.
Well, I would like to hear more about that on offline, and I would like to hear from him on what that was about, because I do know.
But I'll tell you
Hold on for a second. Let's just, you know, we talked about this earlier when we talked about the Republican Party and their candidate for president has 4 different trials going on where he's likely to be convicted. I declared for this seat on October 1st, not worrying about the district lines, not worrying about Latimer, because our standards have just gotten too low. Bowman is not a franchise quarterback. We've already seen enough. He's either Zach Wilson or he's Daniel Jones or he's whoever he is, but this guy is never going to run an important committee in Congress. They're never going to send him overseas to meet important people. And he's never going to get 250 votes from farm states and from California and from Southeast, because he just doesn't relate to people in a way on their terms. And what I'm hearing from Justin is exactly that. So I think this guy's a dead man walking. And that's why I declared to run against him, because
What does Ardina think?
I didn't get to finish my story, though.
Oh,
sorry,
okay,
Justin. I didn't mean to
Justin,
interrupt
finish
you.
your story.
I do want to finish because I was offended, right?
Please
as
do.
a solid progressive that he wouldn't meet with me, right? I was shocked beyond belief as a guy who, you know, gets along with everybody in all communities. And I'll tell you what I did. I was really furious when, through my prominent black friend who's a prominent black official, he wouldn't meet with me. So then I called my black ministers in White Plains and I said, can you believe it? This guy won't meet with me. And then they proceeded to call him. And then I got a meeting with him with my friend, the prominent black official. And, you know, because I was just literally outraged. I was like, who is this guy not to meet with me? I don't mean he's important and I'm not. I don't mean it that way. But I was respectful. I was decent. I was not yelling and screaming at anyone or anything. So I did have my meeting with him, and I would say it was very contentious, to tell you the truth.
So you did have your meeting.
I had a meeting with him,
Okay.
and then for a while we had a relationship that worked. And at a certain point, I realized that his perspective on things was no longer working for me and for my community. And I mean both my White Plains community and certainly the Jewish community.
Yeah.
I mean, when he refused to hear President Herzog speak before Congress, the president of Israel, I had a whole texting thing with him, and I was like, I don't understand. President Herzog is on the left. I mean, I might go hear Netanyahu, whatever I agree or disagree with him, but you know, President Herzog supports a two-state solution. President Herzog is from the Labor Party. President Herzog is not one of these right-wing anti-peace people. He's from the pro-peace camp. And for you not to want to hear him doesn't make any sense to me. You have to want to work with those wherever you are in politics and government, and whether it be in my local city of White Plains or in my neighborhood or in the international scene. You always have to hear from people who are trying to build bridges and make peace and who are sensible. And I was very hurt by that.
Right. So, all right, let's we need to bring this back to Westchester in a second.
Okay.
But go ahead.
All right, fine.
Yep. So, in White Plains, since you're talking about White Plains, let me just I think I did refresh on this. So we've got 55% reporting. What's the story here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people. The Democrats are killing it. Republicans can't get any traction in White Plains. No tremendous shock there, I'm sure, to Justin.
Our numbers are only getting better. This is I believe the first time we got close to 3-1. We were just because I have more updated numbers than this from when I just left Democratic headquarters, and it was just under 3-1.
And so there is
By the way,
a total of. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Charlie.
There's a total of 5 people on the White Plains City Council. On the City Council.
6.
There's 6 people.
And
okay.
there's 6 members. where it's a 4-year term, 3 are up now, 3 are up in 2 years. The mayor is also a voting member of the city council, so there are 7 members that vote on the city council in White Plains.
7 members, and of the 7, how many are Democrats?
They are all Democrats.
They're all Democrats.
When I
So-
moved,
And so my question for you then is, do you like it that way, or do you think it would be healthier if there were 1 or 2 Republicans?
well, I currently like the situation because we're a very cooperative and collaborative group. I mean, we have good, honest government. You don't see scandals in the city of White Plains. You don't see the accusations that you see in other cities. We have a fiscally responsible city. I know that I take great pride in our youth bureau, which takes care of all the kids, and particularly the kids that are in need. We have 68 programs. You can learn how to fly a plane. We have flight simulators and SAT prep and STEAM, and as a result, we keep our kids busy. We're a pretty successful city. Crime is down. It's a great place to be right now. We're,
Yeah.
I think, the second fastest growing city in the state. Developers want to come there. I mean, do we have our issues? Every place has their issues. We certainly, like everyone, have an affordable housing problem. We need more. We have the most generous affordable housing program in the county. When these big developers want to put up housing, they have to give a minimum of 12% or put money into a fund that is specifically allocated for housing.
Okay, but when you do that, when they instead of building affordable housing, when they put it into a fund, how many units of affordable housing have been built with that 12%? With whatever monies are being put into that.
Good question.
Well, it's an interesting question because we often use that money to assist with other programs. So I don't know if you guys know Reverend Greg Smith from the Mount Zion AME Church.
Yes.
But his church, he's a fantastic person, really an inspiring person.
And Mrs. Smith was the superintendent of schools in Mount Vernon for many years.
Correct. So I'm very close with Reverend Smith, and he and his church, he's a reverend in a church amongst a million other things in his very impressive career, is building a senior housing, an affordable senior housing facility on their campus or on their property. And they needed an extra $500,000 to get over the finish line to build these, I think it's 56 units. So the city of White Plains has funds allocated for affordable housing. So that was a great thing to do with our money. We're rebuilding our public housing buildings one by one, making them bigger, making sure everybody who's in public housing stays in public housing. And our public housing authority needed extra money to build, as these buildings are being rebuilt, they need extra money. And the city of White Plains is glad to kick in. We're creating
Okay,
more
I
housing, giving better
understand all
housing.
that, and I think that's terrific, Justin. But my question, which AJ thought was a good question, is that how much of that money, because there's communities that have, if you don't want to build the affordable housing, you give money to a fund. And a lot of communities, they don't end up building those things. The money sits there and then gets moved to other places. And from what I'm hearing from you, the monies that you're bringing in from there are being used to build housing for other organizations and the public buildings on South Lexington and over by Ferris, where the affordable housing is, where the public housing is. But how many in these big towers that have gone up have real affordable housing components?
Time
Lots
out
of-
1 second. Before you answer that question, Ardina, I need you to rotate your phone because you're going sideways. So if you can just pick up your phone and rotate it, I think it'll adjust because we had that problem once before.
She's on a different phone, by the way.
No,
Well,
it's the
yeah.
same.
No,
It's
no,
the same.
yeah, stop.
Oh, you said you were switching phones.
Right.
No,
You
you
know,
know
It's
what?
a batter-
I
It's a
switched-
battery issue.
I switched chargers, and my daughter just
Okay.
introduced me to a lightning charger, so I'm very happy with that.
Can I interject in this situation? So someone who
Yes.
lives in Mount Vernon, what I find out throughout the county, a lot of these municipalities do not want affordable housing, and they're poor in their communities, and they end up running to Mount Vernon. Mount Vernon is like a dumping ground for the rest of the county because they don't have affordable housing in those municipalities. And that's just throughout the county. This is not a White Plains thing. This is throughout the county. This is starting to become-
That's true, but that's not the White
even
Plains.
Yeah, no. But I'm saying even the Rochelle is starting to get that way, and Yonkers is starting. That the poor have nowhere to go, and they end up Mount Vernon ends up being a dumping ground because there's not enough affordable housing in most of those municipalities, and they don't build affordable housing. the question you were asking, how much is going toward building affordable housing that you know, affordable housing.
In general, the overwhelming amount of buildings in our city build affordable housing. They put the 12% in, and it does not go into the affordable housing fund. By
Okay.
far and away, we are building hundreds and hundreds. We might even be up to over 1,000 units of affordable housing in these projects that are going up right now.
That's more than
so
that's more
it's
than
a
the Bronx is doing. That's more than the Bronx
It
is
is
doing.
it is a giant number, and by the way, and these people are treated exactly the same. You know, in New York City, if you do some of this stuff, you can have a separate entrance for people or this or that. We forbid all of that. They are treated exactly as the same as all the other residents in the building. There's no discrimination or distinction allowed.
Ardina,
Question is, they're putting up all this affordable housing and these high rises. Will the infrastructure be able to support it? I mean, you see all these beautiful buildings going up, but then you have old pipes, old electric work. I mean, you're basically overwhelming the environment.
Okay, I could speak to that in White Plains. I can't speak to it in other places. We're a unique city in White Plains in that we have a much, much larger workforce. So we can absorb these people. And I assure you, just yesterday we passed extra money to rebuild our sewers in the city council, literally last night. Approximately 60 to 70,000 people live in White Plains. Clearly, if all this housing gets built, it'll be close to 100,000. But close to 250,000 people work in White Plains. So we have a giant infrastructure, a police department, sewers, plumbing, you name it, stormwater retention for a much larger city. So if we go from 65 or 70 to 90 or 100, considering that we have an additional 250,000 people that work here, we have the infrastructure in place to handle that.
But you're going to have to hire more. You'll have to hire more cops,
Absolutely.
more firemen. I mean, there's an issue. There's an issue right now in Yonkers with the high rises that are going up, and the question is, God forbid there's a fire, does the Yonkers Fire Department have the equipment to be able to access that fire? And the Yonkers Fire Department is saying, no, you have to have higher ladders. You have to have better equipment. Because now you have buildings, instead of the standard 10, 12 floors, now you're having 35 floors. So what happened? It's a good question.
I could just say that yesterday we had the proposal to replace the Galleria Mall. And I personally raised that issue, and I raised it in our September 27th meeting. They want to put up 6 or 7 giant towers. And I have banged the table over and over that our fire department cannot handle that, and that we will need a tremendous increase in it. We do have the best equipment, but we'll need more equipment and more firefighters. But we do hire more firefighters and police officers pretty much every year.
Interesting.
my prediction, by the way, that it is the next mayoral cycle or the one after that, Justin's going to run for mayor. And he knows I've discussed this with him before.
I think he may be running right now, Peter. Do you want to go over? Do you want to go over some of the key races? New Rochelle's got 70% reporting. By the way, Ardina, here's a little tech support for you here. On an iPhone, there's a button there. You see the thing, the little circle one right there.
On the bottom.
Yep. If you go to your control panel, that little button, if you click it, allows you to rotate the phone, and you can get set the way you want. Go ahead, Peter. New Rochelle.
Let's go.
So New Rochelle, 70% reporting, and it's very, very clear. Yadira Ramos Herbert has got commanding. Actually, as of 70%, she's not commanding. It's 52% to 48%. But didn't I hear one of you guys say before she declared herself the winner on News 12?
She did. But I declared myself center fielder for the New York Mets. That never happened.
Maybe she knows something. Maybe she knows something we don't. She may have.
She may have
numbers.
100% of the. Yeah, she may have the whole count.
That's right. All right. So let's go back to Yonkers and see what's happening there. 53% reporting, and Mike Spanos got 60% of the vote. So that looks
surprising. Not surprising.
No,
you think it should be higher or lower?
I don't. Go ahead, AJ. I'm sorry.
No, I said I think it might be higher when it's all said and done. It's 53% of the 53%. There's still a lot more to come in.
Correct.
I don't see.
Yonkers, as someone who knows Yonkers, you and Ardina, was there anything Moranti could have done to get himself elected that he didn't do?
I'll let Ardina answer that. You're muted, Ardina.
Ardina, there's no sound.
Oh, I'm
coming
sorry.
from you.
I can probably unmute Ardina. Hang on a second.
How's that?
Here you go.
There we
That's-
go.
You're
Perfect.
good there. Yep.
I
You
think
got it
I want
together.
Ardina, please can we have Ardina and AJ, and if Marty has an opinion on this too, to weigh in with this.
his campaign. Anthony ran an old school campaign. There were no commercials. There weren't a lot of press conferences. So he didn't have the visibility that Spano had. Now, of course, Spano has visibility because he was mayor, but Spano was able to recycle that visibility and use that to promote his candidacy. Anthony is more of a guy who goes out in the street, goes to the festivals, the picnics, and he shakes hands. But in the modern campaign system, you got to be more aggressive. You can't
Okay,
just
that's an answer.
And aggressive means Facebook ads.
Facebook ads. That's right. He didn't have social media presence. I mean, social
Because that's
media.
where
Marty?
these races. That's apart from the people who are running unopposed, or completely walking away with it, they're winning on social media. But go ahead.
Marty, what's yours?
Ardina, I'd like to ask you a question. Was there a catalytic issue that he could run on, or was it just let's make a change from Mike?
His primary issues, I believe, were overdevelopment and also term limits. I mean, he was adamant about term limits, but I think his main issues were overdevelopment. Because the question is, if you keep these buildings in Yonkers, these high rises, what about the parking spaces? What about the infrastructure? And that carried some weight, but it didn't carry enough publicity for people to get behind it and say, something, let's learn more about it.
Peter, where are
And
we
what
going?
about
When
you,
you
AJ?
when you can.
Go ahead, Marty. You didn't make your point yet, so I'm sorry.
No, Ardina, what we talked about was in Mamaroneck where they had the flooding, and it was kind of like a really urgent issue, and it's a smaller place.
Right.
It sounds like that was enough to flip things.
Yeah,
But the issues you talk about in Yonkers, it didn't sound to me like they were the sort of stuff that got people to really turn out. They just kind of turned out. They didn't turn out excessively.
And you are correct. You're correct. I believe that's a big factor in his not winning.
And
AJ?
Also, even going back to when they voted to overturn to extend the term limits, Mike did something very interesting. He made sure he gave all the union members contracts. Like if you saw a big picture, there was 200 people standing behind them. They were all the union workers. They all got They all got good contracts. So they all were holding up signs 4 more years during these term limit things in the city council. 4 more years because they just got new contracts. So they're riding with Mike, and it was like he had all the unions behind him, and that's kind of.
Hey, Justin, I hope you're taking notes.
And you got to hand it to him. You got to hand it to him.
I have lots to learn.
Hey, by the way, they just the House just announced on CNN that they've censured Rashida Tlaib.
Yes, I saw that a couple of hours ago.
For the TV ad about genocide? Did they say why?
I think it's a series of things, a series of perceived missteps, which I think are missteps, but some people wouldn't agree with that.
So back to local races, a small one here, Pound Ridge. AJ, since you brought it up, the person you were referring to was Namasha Schelling?
Absolutely,
correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so it looks like she is going to be okay. So it's vote for 2. No, actually, no, she's in 3rd place.
She's in 3rd place.
Yes.
So 100% of the votes are in. I guess the
lost.
top 2 vote getters.
Yeah,
So she lost.
Yeah.
She came close. Though. No,
But don't we still
no,
have to count? I mean,
no.
we still need to count
Wait.
the,
No, Justin's talking about the mail-in ballots, right, Justin?
right.
It's a 6 vote difference right now.
It's close. It's
You
close.
can do that by mail-in, but also these results don't include early voting.
Really?
Oh,
They don't.
Is that true?
Is that just
I
for
believe
tonight?
I believe these do not include early voting. I could be wrong, but that's my understanding. Is
Let's
it does not
see if
include
this
early
is in
voting.
here. It says here, I'll make this a little bigger.
thank you for schooling us on this
Early
issue,
voting.
Click
Justin.
on early
Appreciate it.
voting results right there.
Early voting results for Westchester County from all early voting locations. Let's go there. Oh my goodness. Okay, so we would need to look. Okay, here's how we get to our answer. We go
That's
to.
too very small.
I'm gonna make it easy for you guys. Okay, so Pound Ridge, we're talking about Pound Ridge council member, where it's vote for two, and there's 4 people running, and there's a 6 vote gap between 2 people. Wait, I think it actually just updated. Schelling is now at 390, and
14 votes.
there's 14 vote difference. So we have to see if there's another 14 vote gap in the early voting results in order to determine this. So we go to early voting results, and we make this bigger so you can read it. And we're looking for Pound Ridge.
That's
It's going to be
Supreme Court right
way
there.
down there.
We're in Greenberg. We're making progress.
No, the top is Supreme Court. You got to scroll down.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, hold on a second. I got to make this smaller, and then when I find it, I'll make it bigger. State Supreme Court, and so presumably below that there should be more results. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. Oh my God, it's like every district in the county.
Yeah.
Fun to look at, right? Okay, there we go.
Well,
County
as
code.
they say, every vote counts, and it really
Okay,
does.
here's how we're going to do this. We're going to search for Pound Ridge. No, we're gonna search for. Is it a village? Village.
I think it's a town. I believe it's a town. There we go. Town.
Yeah, but those are Pound Ridge's results. This is not an easy
You have to
bit
scroll
of
all the way
data.
down till you get to till you get to council races or something.
Correct. More county court judges. Hold on. Legislative districts.
So Ardina,
Mayor
while he's scrolling
Peekskill.
there, Ardina,
Yes.
did you think that Moranti would do better than 40%?
A tough call. Yes, I thought that he would do better than 40% based on the momentum that he appeared to be gaining. But
He did better the last time. He was closer the last time.
Well, we don't have all the votes in yet, so we don't know.
If it stays 20%, this time.
You've got mail.
All right.
It's hard, it's hard for me to accept that 20. It's hard for me to accept that 20% because I watched his campaign, and he was really beginning to gain traction. And I think the 20% is just kind of a preliminary figure. I'd much rather look at the numbers when the whole tally is.
Okay. All right. I understand that.
I would expect that he would have gotten more. What the race that I'm really curious about, though, is Nolan and Walters,
Yeah, that's a very important race.
because she was getting a lot of the Ruth was getting a lot of the of the female votes, and I want to see if a lot of women turned out to vote for her and what the numbers were.
So,
All right, let's go
By the way,
find that one.
Justin, do you think?
Hold up what you're scrolling to. So in the she only won one of the districts, 142 to 145. The other district one, she lost 142 to 138. District 3, she lost 105 to 101. And District 4, she lost 80 to 75. So that added to the lead. She only won one of the districts by 3 points.
Justin, is Lawler beatable, and who's going to run against him?
Well, it looks like Mondaire Jones is going to be the candidate in that race,
You have
and he's
Mondaire
certainly
Jones.
beatable.
You have Mondaire Jones. You have Mary Ann Carr, who is the supervisor at Bedford, and you have, I don't remember her name, but she's cousins with the Michigan governor.
She's sister. She's the
Sister.
sister
Liz
of the
Garrity.
Michigan.
Yeah, she's
Yeah.
sister. So those are your candidates right now.
But it looks very much like Mondaire is going to pull that off. He has money, name recognition, and he's a very astute former congressman.
I liked him when he was our congressperson. When he was in office, Justin, I thought he did a great job.
He certainly did a good job of representing the people in the parts of the district that I know about. He certainly understood his constituents and their needs and desires and what they
did.
wanted from a federal representative.
And the Democrats screwed him out of that district.
Yes, way above my pay grade, but yes.
I didn't ask your opinion on that. I'm making a statement.
Well,
I'd like to ask Justin the question. Justin, do you think that the progressive movement in Westchester has picked up momentum in this cycle of elections, or is it just kind of the way it was before?
I don't know what you mean by the progressive. If you mean good Democrats, I think good Democrats are winning all over the place.
No, I was
Whether it's
asking.
in, but if you're asking about the hard
So what
left,
time out? Is a good Democrat a progressive Democrat who agrees with you? I don't quite understand what you're getting at.
well, look, is George Latimer a progressive or not? That becomes an interesting debate that anybody could have. I would say he is, and I'm his type of, and Ken Jenkins and Shelley and Andrea, I'm that type of Democrat. I'm not an AOC type of Democrat.
Well, you raise an important point: the definition of a progressive. I mean, is
Correct.
a progressive AOC, or is a progressive somebody like Latimer who basically kind of declares Westchester as a sanctuary county?
Correct, and builds affordable housing for gays and the LGBT community in White Plains, and does a lot of things and is pro-choice and supports all of these things that we believe. He works on protecting the environment. Let's face it, George Latimer created free busing for good parts of the year on the Beeline bus system. I think that's very progressive.
Yes, for the summer.
Okay, but
It's a big deal. I mean, nobody's ever done that before.
It's a very big deal.
But going
You know?
forward, going forward in the next election, if Latimer decides to run, the word that P word, the progressive word, will demand a stronger definition, because that will determine his position in the race. And if he is a true progressive, then people are going to lump him with the AOC brand. So how do you?
No one's
Well, he's
going to
not
lump
gonna-
him. No one's
think
going
the
to
whole
lump
point
him
of
with
his-
the AOC brand.
I think the whole point of his
Not-
race
not
is
with
that he's
Jamal.
differentiating himself from Jamal Bowman, AOC, and Rashida Tlaib and the squad. He's saying I'm a different type of Democrat.
Well, he's certainly not going to fundraise by way of Justice Democrats. So by definition, he's in a different group than AOC. But
I saw that AJ wanted to weigh in.
No.
Oh, I thought I saw that.
I was just saying George will never be considered affiliated with AOC as long as Bowman is the other. There's a difference between Bowman's affiliation and George, but George is more things to more people. Like, you know what I'm saying? So progressive embrace him, centrists embrace him. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's just a little bit to everybody. Like,
But in terms of policy,
and I would say he's a Westchester guy. He's had multiple. He was in the state senate for a while. He's had a bunch of local offices, and I'm not clear that he's raised money on the national stage, which Bowman has access to through Justice Democrats.
But his real goal, if he was to voice it, is to be the next manager of the New York Mets.
That's probably so. That's
I
probably
think he
so.
wants to be manager of the New York Mets.
Caleb, I'm on TV.
but in terms of
Who's Caleb?
in terms of,
Sorry
His
about
son.
that.
His son.
My son was making too much noise.
Hey, Caleb. Hi,
He's a
Caleb.
nice guy. He's a nice guy.
He is.
But I want to be clear about one thing. It is obvious to me that George Latimer will have national money in this campaign.
Yes.
If he
Because-
decides to do it
Right.
on a number of places, not just the places you think, there's going to be a lot of national money in this.
Well, isn't it obvious to everybody that, let's take the word extremists and add it to the word progressive. Isn't it obvious to everybody that the extremists, progressives are losing ground right now?
Yes.
No.
No?
No.
Okay.
Summer Lee won a seat in Pittsburgh in the last cycle. Bowman continues to be popular in certain circles. AOC is fantastically
Hold
popular
on for a second. Which circles is Bowman popular in?
in the circles in which he's raising money for Justice Democrats.
But it's interesting that Ilhan Omar barely won her seat and her candidate didn't draw national money.
Yeah, listen, guys, they're not my cup of tea either. But every time
I asked a different
every time you underestimate Justice Democrats, you will be disappointed because they have cut through and been much more successful than anyone would have ever predicted, including Bowman's seat, including Summer Lee, including a bunch of other people I can't remember. They've got pockets of presence all over this country. And I'm saying, what I'm saying to you, Justin, is that don't underestimate how important Bowman's seat is to Justice Democrats and the kind of resources that they can unleash to try to hold on to it.
Listen, we had it in White Plains. We had an AOC Bernie back candidate run for city council 4 years ago, and we did not underestimate that candidate. And we worked. I know myself. I worked around the clock. And we defeated that candidate. And that candidate was contentious and difficult.
Right.
And honestly, that candidate was dishonest. She created a crisis and pretended to solve it, which was certainly not the type of government that I believe in. So, but yes, they're never to be underestimated. They are very smart. And, I'm not sure I know. My big problem with them is I want to be constructive and I actually want to build affordable housing and I want to help the kids and build our youth bureau. And I'm saying on every level of government, and I often question what they accomplish.
Right, and you pointed it out. They can surprise you because just when you think that the Justice Democrats candidate is too far to the left, too brash, too noisy, doesn't make a lot of sense, a busload of white guys from Brooklyn will come out here and go door to door when the other candidate doesn't. And what do you do then?
I would I would leave out the word brash because we have a brash on our broadcast.
Right. Maybe that's what gave me the idea.
On the issue, on the definition of progressive and non-progressive, what's the biggest distinctions between Bowman and Latimer besides Israel?
George Latimer would have voted for Build Back Better. George Latimer would have voted for the debt ceiling compromise. I mean, George Latimer, whenever President Biden says, I'm counting votes and I need votes, not whenever, he will be one of those 200 plus Democrats who votes with him, not one of the 10 to 20 who don't. He will be there for when the national Democrats need a vote. George Latimer will be like, of course I'm going to give my vote for that.
But so would Marty so would Marty if he won. Right, Marty?
That will be the narrative, Justin. That will be the narrative. But what's going to win it? It's going to be a referendum on Israel.
I think that's going to be one issue. I think it's probably going to be the main issue. But
it's going to be the main issue because the war. Everybody thought that the war was going to be over like the 6 Day War. I mean, this has been the history of Israel, that they go in, they take care of business, it's over, and it's settled. But this war has changed not only the politics in the Middle East, but it's changed the politics in the United States because of the global influences.
Thank you, Ardina. And if they don't settle this thing quickly, it's going to come right into U.S. politics and right into local politics.
And I hate to say this, and I hate to say this as a post-Auschwitz Jew and the child of a survivor, but this is not about any election, but 2 days from now is November 9th. November 9th, as Justin knows, and I think November 9th, 10th, is the 85th anniversary of Kristallnacht. Is the final act in a 15-year battle for the streets. In this country, we're involved in battle in the streets, battle in universities. And while people are supporting the Jews, there are a lot of people who are not. And I am very that synagogues and Jews in the next 3 or 4 days are going to be targeted. There was a person who was at a counter rally in LA yesterday who was bashed over the head and murdered. And I think that there's going to be more Jewish blood on the streets of the United States, which has, but that we are involved right now in a struggle for our very existence, like we were from 1923 to 38. And after that, we all know what happens after.
I want to say one thing though. Yeah, I mean, Kristallnacht was the beginning of the end, and thousands of synagogues were burned, and et cetera, et cetera. But I want to respond to the question about it being a quick war. I mean, there are 300 miles of tunnels underneath Gaza, and the Israelis have always said this is not going to be a quick and simple operation to clean that up, and it's a disaster. But remember, Hamas came across the border on a Sabbath and a Jewish holiday, killed 1,400,
Right.
took 242 hostages.
Justin, I'm familiar with the history of the last month. We need to go back to these local races. Peter, which one do you want to look at? Which one do we want to look at next?
I'm open to where you want to look. Did anything change in Mamaroneck?
So I'm a little bit confused. I'm sorry I'm a little bit confused about Mamaroneck. We see Village of Mamaroneck, but when Lou was reporting in, he was talking about what?
The village, because there's the town and there's the village. The election is the Village of Mamaroneck.
Right. So why am I not seeing the? Oh, there they are. Town clerk.
Right.
Yes, they're
Town
down,
justice.
Down lower. Yes.
Okay. And what race was he talking about?
The mayor.
The mayor.
And I'm not. Why am I not seeing that?
I know it's. I know. But it was there before, and now it's not.
Pardon my ignorance. Who did Mayor Murphy lose to?
Sharon Torres.
And do we know? I don't know anything about her. I'm sorry.
She's an
Sharon,
HR executive.
She's a young woman from who was raised by a single mother from the South Bronx. She's a self-made person. She's lived in Mamaroneck for a while, and she took a chance and she won. Doesn't have any political experience.
She a Republican?
There you go.
She a Republican?
No, she's Democrat.
And she beat a Republican.
Yes.
No, Murphy is a Democrat.
They're
Murphy's
both
a
Democrats.
They're both Democrats, yeah. But Sharon Torres also had the backing of a strong feminist component in Mamaroneck who, frankly, was fed up with Murphy. You know, who felt that Murphy was abrasive, misogynist to a degree, and they voted accordingly.
It's odd that they're not reporting out on that one. Oh, well, okay. I guess on these super close races, well, there's no super close races here, but to Justin's point before, where you get into one of these super close races like that Pound Ridge one we were looking at before, then you got to go back
down
to
where you are right now. Scroll down, because I think the mayor is after this trustee of Village of Larchmont. I think it's after this.
No, the mayor should be above that.
Yeah, and it's not there.
Okay, it's not there. Okay, so I guess we're not going to look at Mamaroneck. We only have a couple of minutes left because we want to get off around 11:30, right, everybody?
Looks like Shanae Williams has won the county legislator seat.
Yes.
And
let's go to Yonkers and take one more sweep through there, because the numbers are up in the high 50s now. So with 58% reporting, Mike Spano has 60% of the vote.
So right there it's 37. And Allison Abramson has 3% of the vote. 332 people voted for Allison Abramson.
Right. Now, it's worth pointing out that 4,500 people voted for Anthony Morante. So that's not nothing.
No.
and considering the sort of machine that he's up against, that's a respectable.
But Anthony
Showing, I
had
think,
the
in my opinion.
opportunity to have a wider campaign. I know someone personally who was advising him, and then that person got shut out a month before the election. And I think that interfered with his ability to garner more votes.
Deanna Robinson, who we understand is closely aligned to the mayor, 85%.
Yeah, yeah.
Tasha Diaz, closely aligned to the mayor, 77%.
Listen, somebody was telling me tonight at the White Plains celebration, a big union leader was saying, listen, Mike Spano controls everything. And to underestimate that is foolish. He really has put everyone on the council and controls everyone on the council. He runs the school board. It's the only city in Westchester, or I believe municipality, where the schools are also run by the city government, the municipal
No,
I don't know why they
Correct.
don't nickname him Boss Spano.
Yonkers is
When I said Yonkers, AJ, I said Yonkers. I think that's the only one. Is there another one, AJ?
no, Mount Vernon is no longer. I don't know if there's another one, to be honest.
No, I think the only one that has a mayoral appointed school board is Yonkers. Yeah, I think you're correct, Justin. And I think your description of Mike Spano's grip on Yonkers politics is succinct.
You know,
and
one
correct.
thing we haven't talked about, if you want to talk about local politics, is don't forget our DA just quit or isn't running for re-election. I mean, that's a big issue,
That's going to be a big issue for next year's.
That's right, Mimi Roca.
Yes,
right?
because you
She's
have,
not running for re-election, and
Well,
candidates are already calling me up for support.
Rumor
Who
is that she may run. She may run for Bowman's job.
No, she's not going to
No,
do
she's
that.
not running for Bowman Shop.
She's fed up with politics.
She's so the whole thing going over there that Joe was just discussing Israel and Hamas had more of an effect on her than she possibly thought, and she's not doing anything right now. That's really bought. It really got to her in a way that she didn't think it was going to get to her. And her problem is, now I'm a supporter. Her problem is she wanted to consider the DA's office as a non-political office. Like there's gonna, it's political. You know what I'm saying?
Of course it is.
Trying to move in a way that it wasn't political, and that's an uphill battle. And it was admirable, but it's a political appointment. There's politics all through that.
Yeah.
And she was trying to move in a non-political way, and there's a lot of frustration there. That's why she's not running again.
So, Peter, we're coming up on 11:30. Do you want to roll the credits, or is there another race you want to take a look at? I'm going to leave it to you.
I think, guys, what do you think? You think we can call it a night?
I think we had a good number of people. I think we had a good number of people come in here and look at the stream tonight. I think this was a very successful first ever 914 Wired election night live stream. I want to thank everyone here. Of course, my partners in crime, Peter Moses, Ardina Seward, AJ, thank you for coming in here. Marty, thank you for coming in here. And Justin, thank you for coming in here. Thanks as well. I'll send Lou a nice email tonight thanking him as well. I thought it was an interesting discussion. I think my takeaway from this is be a Democrat and run unopposed.
Hey, guys.
Good night. Thank you, everybody. It was great.
Justin, Marty, and AJ, thank you so much for giving
Thank you,
us
guys.
Your views.
Thank
And maybe next year we'll do this again with you guys.
Sounds great.
I'll
Good night.
be
Thank
busy.
you. I got to get to Caleb.
Okay, go see your son. Okay.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.